Hello, Mr. Ramsey. How are you this morning?
Oh, fine, sir.
It's great to
101,
have.
101 years old.
Oh my goodness. Well, congratulations. That's a hell of an achievement. Well, I just wanted to say thank you for joining us. I'd like to kick off by asking you about the 1930s, about your the time when you were growing up in the United States. What do you remember about the 1930s?
Well, the 1930s, I was born in 1923. So that's a little bit before I was a very sickly child. I had special milk and everything I had to drink. This was during Prohibition, and they gave me a prescription to get a pint of liquor every day. Not a pint every day. I take a teaspoon every day, and this is unbelievable. A little kid could get liquor, but my parents couldn't. I lived in Brooklyn, New York. That's where I was born. I went to the all the public schools, and during the 30s, I was growing up in high school and what have you, and a lot of good friends. We had roller skating rinks, and we used to go roller skating all the time. And we had a lot of dances and stuff that we went to. Places like the PAL, that's the Police Athletic League, and I played basketball, all the sports. I had a lot of good friends, and basically, when the war broke out, we didn't have much information on the news. But my father had one of these things called the cat's whisker. It was a little one diode crystal set. You have earphones on. They say, "Hey, I got New Jersey." Today I could pick up the phone and I could talk to the president. And we finally got a radio, and we could listen to Amos and Andy and programs like that. And no pictures, so we had to visualize in our minds what was happening just from the people speaking, and that was great. And we used to take long rides out into the countryside on Long Island, which was all potato fields at that time. Today it's the Hamptons. It's where all the rich people go. And when the war broke out, I was working in a Brooklyn Navy Yard, and I got to build the Iowa and the USS Missouri, two ships that would play a part of my life towards the end of the war.
Do you remember? Sorry, sir. Do you remember discovering that Pearl Harbor had been bombed?
Well, we heard it on the radio. There was no television. We had none of that good stuff. I know in Great Britain you guys had the public television. You already had it over there, BBC.
What was your reaction? What was your reaction to hearing that the news that Pearl Harbor had been bombed?
Wow, where the hell is Pearl Harbor? We didn't know what Hawaii was. we were a bunch of kids that didn't have any access to the things that the kids have today.
Why did you decide to choose the Navy? Is that because you'd worked in the Navy Yard? Why the Navy?
Well, the Navy, that's the reason why I did. My uncle in World War One was a chief petty officer, and he was with the submarines. So I volunteered to. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. I worked on many ships in the Navy Yard. I worked on a South Dakota, which is a famous battleship X at the time. Plus, all of the the ships at the time. Every ship was Battleship X because we became incognito. The whole fleet took their names and numbers off the ships, so we could use a small fleet to be a lot of places, and they didn't know which fleet it was. So I saw the Iowa launched. I went from Brooklyn to Bayonne to have the guns put on. And that was a nice experience for me, being a young kid. I was working with the pipe fitters. So when 1940, this was in 1942, 1943, I figured the Navy didn't need any men because all the ships at Pearl Harbor, they had no ships. I think it was better if I worked to build ships before I went to the Navy. Excuse me. Yeah, drink water. So in 1920, on the day before St. Patty's Day, I joined the Navy. I enlisted, and I was sent up to Great Lakes Naval Training Station, where they taught us how to put out fires, and how to march, how to drill, how to give orders, how to take orders, and get along with people in general. Learn to sleep in a hammock. And went on Great Lakes out on rowing and boats. And I volunteered for a submarine service. So they kept 200 of us and sent us out to the West Coast by Pullman car. And we went to Hayward, California to a receiving ship. Can you hear me okay, sir?
Yeah, absolutely, sir. We're all glued.
So we were there. I'm sorry. So we stayed there about 2 weeks in Hayward, California. And pretty soon a couple of trucks pulled up. And they said, okay, guys, throw your gear in the trucks. We're going to take a ride. We thought we were going to go to San Diego for the sub school. But instead they went to the Mare Island Navy Yard, which is under the Golden Gate Bridge. And it was this, what we thought was the biggest battleship in the world. Actually, it was the USS Nevada. It was the oldest ship in the Navy. It was launched in 1911 and fought in World War I. And all during World War II was a long story. But we went under the Golden Gate Bridge, made a left-hand turn, went down through the Panama Canal, to up to Norfolk, Virginia. And then we started to put the Atlantic color paint, camouflage paint on it. It had a lot of guns on it, anti-aircraft guns. And we started doing convoy duty from Brooklyn to Bayonne, Brooklyn to Boston to Belfast and Northern Ireland, Scotland, Glasgow, Scotland. We made 6 such trips. Each trip took us 18 days each way, because we can only go as fast as slow as convoy ship. And the convoy ship, some of them can only do 10 knots. Plus we had a zigzag all the way across. That's going and coming, so it took us a good part of a month each trip. So we made 6 of those. And then, like in May of 1944, we stayed there and we started to practice we knew not what, because they didn't tell us what we were going to do. But we were practicing shooting at the mountains in Scotland because they were very similar to the guns in Europe. But again, we had no idea. But after the June rolled around, then we were giving a synopsis what was going to happen. June 5th was the day picked for the invasion. And the paratroopers got on their planes and the gliders and the ships, all the soldiers were put on board ship. And in the Navy, we left port. And all of a sudden we got recalled. The weather was too bad. And they held it off for one day, which is June 6th. And the invasion was indeed June 6th. So we arrived in the Khartoum Peninsula at about 1:30 in the morning. But the paratroopers had already were on their way. And we could see them going and coming in the night sky, and it looked like a giant kaleidoscope with as much anti-aircraft fire. Of course, we hadn't gone to general quarters yet. And we got a splash off the port side of the ship about 1,000 yards. And that didn't bother us too much because it was too far away. But a lot of these poor soldiers that were in the gliders and the parachute planes, they gave up their todays for your tomorrows. They never went to school. They never had felt the warmth of a woman. They were just a bunch of 18, 19-year-old kids. That's what the war was for in Europe, 18 and 19-year-old kids. That's it. We just left that there. I left home with all our buddies were that age, and every one of them signed up. Marines, Air Force, Army. I had one of my buddies, as soon as the war broke out, he went to the Marine Corps, signed right up. And he had such a good booming voice, they made him a drill instructor. So he never left Paris Island to Okinawa. So we left for the invasion. And we got there about 5 o'clock in the morning. The Texas and the Arkansas broke off, and they went to Utah, Omaha Beach, and the Nevada, and the Quincy, and one Irish, not Irish, but English battleship was with us. And we got off at Utah Beach. So we had about an hour and a half of pre-bombardment, which we knocked off many gun emplacements. And one big fortress, we hit it five times in a row, all direct hits, killed everybody in the fortress. After our ammunition started to run out, we had to get back to Belfast, Northern Ireland, to get ammunition to get back into the fray. On the way back, they told us to stop at Omaha Beach and give them a hand. So Omaha Beach was having problems because the Air Force was supposed to drop bombs on the beach so the soldiers could get into the foxholes, but they waited 5 seconds and they dropped the bombs and they fell back into the fortresses, causing a big fire and a lot of smoke. So the battleships couldn't see what they were firing at, and the troops were landing, and they were getting slaughtered. And Bradley was wondering whether they made any provisions for getting the troops off the beach. He thought they were going to have to retreat, but one of our destroyers got in touch with the army on the beach, and they relayed the coordinates to the Texas and the Arkansas and they prevailed. And we stopped on our way back, as I said, and we started taking, we fired at Port de Hoc, and a lot of individuals with small guns that were firing at the troops. So after we got back to Utah Beach, we were told to form up with the Texas and the Arkansas and go to Cherbourg. We had a 3-hour fight with the Germans to take the port of Cherbourg. We got straddled 27 times, and the Texas got straddled 87 times. Of course, they outgunned, outranged us by 10,000 yards. So we had our destroyers make smoke, and we were able to get under their range and take them off. And we finally, the Army says, cease firing. We'll take it from here. When he captured the port was so full of mines and everything they could throw into the port, which made it all we did not necessary because they couldn't use it for months. They had to rely on the artificial harbor and the causeways that was built in England and brought over the British merchant marine was supposed to man these things, and they said we are non-combatants, and our American Seabees, which are older men, they manned them, and they took the ports and the causeways. There, and they set them up, and they did a good job. After 2 days, a big storm came up, and they could only use one of them. So they called in them American engineers to see how they could get the tanks off, because the tanks were going into the water. The ones were supposed to float, and they sunk. So they had to take them off one at a time. Of course, each one of these sections were separate, and they floated. You could only put one tank at a time. Had to wait at just the right moment to move another tank and another tank. These were used quite almost to the end of the invasion. The British had built a pipeline to bring the oil across the channel. So we went to Cherbourg. We were at Cherbourg, and we come back from Cherbourg. We were told to form up and go to our second invasion, which is southern France. We went to southern France, and we were told to destroy the battleship Strasbourg, which the Germans had captured from the French, and they made a shore battery out of it. So the Nevada had it down by the stern before we left. They also had a big gun there called Big Willie. That's one of these railroad cars with the guns on it that the Germans had. They were very big guns. We destroyed that, and we had paratroopers there as well. And the invasion was secured after a couple of hours. Churchill called it Operation Dragoon because he did not want to invade southern France. So he figures they were dragooned. But before the invasion, we started. We had to go up to. We stopped at Oran and Algiers, North Africa. Then we went up to Italy to form up with the French battleship and the Arkansas and the Texas and the Nevada. And they acquitted themselves very well. Our last engagement before we were ordered to go home was at the Chateau d'If, which is the legendary home of the Count de Monte Cristo. And they had guns, if you saw the movie Guns of Navarone, they had big guns up on the top of the mountain. Our number one Mount 1 fired 3-gun salvos and hit it right underneath that, and they all come tumbling into the sea. And then we received orders that our adventure in France was over, and we had to go to report to Norfolk, Virginia. And on the way back, we hit the worst storm in 100 years. We did more damage to the ship than the Germans did to us because we're never hit. And one of our destroyers was sunk and lost all hands. So we were redirected to go into New York, which is where I lived, which was great for me. And a lot of my sailors, they had no idea about New York. They never visited. So when we got there, as soon as the whistle blew, the gangway was secure. I had a visitor. My cousin was in charge of the line handling party at moored the ship, which was great. Welcome home, Dick. And then the reporters come on board. First one come up, we were at Pearl Harbor. I said, no, you're an idiot. We were at just the biggest invasion in the world. So we stayed there 4 days and then reported to Norfolk, Virginia, where all of our main battery guns had to be replaced. But the Nevada got guns from the Oklahoma and the Arkansas, that's the Arizona. So when we went to the Pacific, we had guns from the first division of the Navy. And we went to Norfolk, Virginia. We're Norfolk, but we had a new pay offer for the Pacific. And we got a 10-day leave to go home, which is great. And when we all come back, we took off at the Panama Canal. But we went to the Panama Canal. Let's see, we're still on San Francisco. Have to excuse it. There's old me. I'm having a senior moment.
Don't worry, you're entitled to as many of those as you can possibly get.
When we got to back to the States, we went to San Francisco, and I was on Liberty, and I'm walking along the street with a bunch of my sailors and another bunch of sailors coming the other way. And I looked and I sort of see a guy, and I immediately took off. They thought we were having a fight. It was my brother. I didn't even know he was in the Navy.
Wow.
That's amazing. We couldn't communicate with one another about troop movements or anything. So he was on an oiler, a tanker. So I got to visit him on a ship all day, which is very nice. And the next day, he took off for Pearl Harbor, and we went to Long Beach, California. In Long Beach, California, we took on some more supplies and what have you. And then we took off for Pearl Harbor. When we got to Pearl Harbor, we were only going to be there a couple of days. But we got a hero's welcome. But that was the first time Nevada was back to Pearl Harbor since the invasion, the Japanese attack.
Can you sir, Mr. Ramsey, can you tell us more about that moment? That must have made you feel very proud indeed. Was it a highlight of your life? Was it a great moment in your life?
Coming back to Pearl Harbor, getting out.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. All the whistles and horns are blowing. Everybody's just standing by the sides in their white uniforms. But they didn't get to go on the beach. I went on the beach from the quarterdeck, and there was a gangway up forward, but visitors come on board. So my brother come on board to visit me. And he stayed the whole day on the ship, and I spent the whole day on the beach. I never saw him. That was funny. I never saw him again until the war ended. When he was home before I was. But they could go faster than we could. so in a convoy.
Mr. Ramsey, were your parents worried about both of you? It's an obvious question, but to have two sons serving at the same time in the Navy, that must have been hard for your parents.
Well, that we had gotten a lot of publicity in Europe. We were identified, so they knew what was happening in Europe and in the Pacific, because they after Normandy, they took put names back on the ships and put the numbers back, so we could identify ourselves. So my father and mother, sure, they were worried, and my father was in the infantry, and he served in France, in Chateau Thierry and Belleau Woods. He was with the Marines when they finally took the Battle of Belleau Woods. It took them 10 times to take it, and the Germans called them dogs. That's where they got their name, the Devil Dogs, from the Germans. And
your father fought at Belleau Wood with the Marines.
Yeah. Well, he was in the Army Artillery.
Wow.
The Army Artillery. So the Marines at the time didn't have artillery, I don't think. They were just cannon fodder, just like everybody else.
You had no choice but to join the Navy then, given your father's.
But of course, my father, he knew I was going to go into the Navy. He figured all the rich guys join the Navy, and they take care of him. Little did he know what I was going to go through. So when we left Pearl Harbor, we had to refuel ships now we were refueling ships at sea. Our destroyers didn't have enough fuel to get back and forth. So one of the destroyers that we were refueling had one of a band leader, Eddie Duchin, the piano player. He was the commanding, the executive officer on the ship. So our ship's band came up on the folks from serenading it with his music. And we were throwing guidons over to the sailors on the ship. So the ship started to pull apart. My line handling party started to get pulled over the side of the ship. So I said, cut the line. So I took my knife. Luckily, it was a sharp knife. I cut the line, and we all fell back on the deck. But they had to recover the fueling tube. But we all survived, no problem. Then our first stop back was we went to a place called Mogmog. It's called in Ulithi. It's in the Marshall Islands, and we were watching a movie on topside, and all of a sudden the lights on the projector went out. It was out about 5 minutes. Don't ask me the name of the movie because I can't remember that. But we had a silk screen on one of the 14-inch guns, and you could watch it from both sides. But some people saw it left-handed, and some people saw it right-handed. And the lights went out, and all of a sudden 2 airplanes went over. I said, "What son of a bitch is up there without lights on?" And I found out about 3 minutes later, the carrier Randolph was dead ahead of us, and it was the biggest explosion I've ever seen in my life. The whole sky lit up from almost horizon to horizon. And the Japanese, they killed, there was 50 men on the carrier killed and maybe 100 wounded. Now you realize carriers have over 1,000 men on board all the time. So my chief petty officer next morning we're shooting the breeze. Said, "Wow," he said, "if that few men can get killed in an explosion like that, I'm not going to worry anymore." So next day, we took over the invasion of Okinawa. I skipped Iwo Jima, didn't I? Let me to Okinawa first, and I'll get back to Iwo Jima.
Okay, we'll allow you to skip that, but we have to go back to Iwo Jima at some point. But carry on.
So March 27th, the Nevada got hit with a suicide plane, and we lost 11 men. But 5 of them were Marines, and 1 chief petty officer, my friend, Chief Court Kemp. He was killed. Little did he know, he didn't get his wish. So you got to worry what you wish for when you're in the Navy.
Does it?
And the Marines. I'll pick up Okinawa now. The Marines on Iwo Jima on our ship they wanted to go on the beach and join their comrades, and we couldn't let them go because they belonged to the anti-aircraft guns, and some of them were in the 14-inch guns as well. So it was an impossibility. We couldn't diminish our firepower, and we got to shoot down a Japanese airplane there. But the Japanese, we had it gave us 3 days to for pre-bombardment before the invasion. And we were the gunnery flagship. And we had to cease firing about after the first day for 1 hour to allow a flotilla of frogmen go in on Mount Suribachi and get into the water and see were there any obstacles for the invasion. And the Japanese thought the invasion was starting, and we call that the false invasion, because some of the guns on top of Mount Suribachi opened fire, and they were decimating the LCRs with the frogmen on it. We took one alongside of us. We took off 5 of them dead and about 5 or 6 wounded. And as soon as we got them off, they were right back into the fray. We buried their dead at sea. And then went back to our position on the firing line with all the old battleships. And about the Japanese allowed the first 4 landings to take place. They didn't open fire. And when they finally did open fire, they killed over 2,000 Marines. And during the darkness, they was coming out of the holes that they were buried 7 stories into the ground. They come up and do a banzai charge on our Marines, and they couldn't see them. So we got a radio report from the general in charge. He says, "Have you made any provisions for taking us off the island?" So well, Admiral Rogers says, "I'll get back in a few minutes." He says, "If we light the place like a football field, would it help?" He said, "We'll try anything." So then we started firing star shells every night when it got dark. So the Japanese couldn't come out of their holes to do the banzai charges. So eventually the Marines prevailed, and the actual original and Navy losses with 2,453 people, and the Japanese lost 22,000 Army and Navy men. That was that one battle. That was 46,000 men between both sides. And I mean, that was horrible. And we were fortunate. We didn't get too much firing from the beach because they didn't want to show us where the guns were. We had a spotting plane which we sent up, and that was our only casualty on Iwo Jima. The plane was shot down, and the officer, they found him with all his clothes taken off him, because the Japanese were dressing up in a uniform and trying to use that as subterfuge. And after 16 days, we were ordered to go to Okinawa. The battle actually lasted 36 days before they capitulated. And they took the island because the B-29s and the fighter planes that escorted them needed a place to land. And it was to no avail. All that death on both sides was not necessary. Because after Okinawa, you know what happened. But now Okinawa started. It started on April 1st. So actually on the 27th of March, when we got hit with the suicide plane, was before the invasion started. But we were at Okinawa. And the first wave had very little resistance, because the Japanese were heading to the middle of the island. And they were on the ground again. So this went on for 3 months. This was the most bloodiest and the longest battle in World War II, with the exception of the Battle of the Atlantic, which lasted the whole war. And I had one of my, I don't want to digress. We could go off.
Sir, you're very welcome to digress whenever you like. Please do so.
We had a shore battery opened up on us about a month and a half into the battle, and they pumped 6 shells into us. We were standing regular watches at Okinawa because we couldn't do like we did at Normandy. Normandy, we were on battle stations for 80 straight hours. And we couldn't do that when we were on the Pacific, because the battle lasted so long. So we were standing every day. We stood through 4-hour watches. I got off watch, and oh boy, the bunk's going to feel good to me. I lay down in my bunk fully clothed. I know I shouldn't put my head on a mattress, and I found the general quarters again. And again, my general quarters now I had to go to my secondary battle station, which is down in the powder magazine, which is a bad place to be. And I heard a thump over the top of the deck. Thank God it was an armor shell deck. We had 3 decks on the Nevada. I was on the second deck sleeping, and I had to get down to the 3rd deck for the magazine. So when it sounded all clear, I went up to my compartment, where my bunk go. There's 2 big holes in the bulkhead. One of the shells started to break up, and it put 2 holes in the bulkhead, completely destroyed my bunk, the 2 bunks on top of me. I lost all my Liberty clothes, my dress blues, my shoes, pea coats, my whole uniform. But I wasn't in it, thank God. I missed. If I didn't get up and haul ass and go to my battle station, I was very, very quick when they sounded battle stations, especially out of the Pacific, because I saw what the suicide plane did, and I saw what the silver could do. So I move when I have to. And on board ship, you can only go one direction. You could not go both go, because you can't go up the down staircase, and all that kind of stuff. So we had one officer at Okinawa. They had battle stations, and he's going down to his station at the wrong ladder. The sailors were trying to get up to go to theirs. And he took his gun out and he made the sailors back down. When they sound all clear, he was afraid to walk on the deck. But he would have on the older side. He got put on a report and they sent him off the ship. He wound up a captain on another ship. Why they did that, I have no idea. I guess the brass takes care of their own.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how, while we were in Okinawa, we got a communique to form up with the Third Fleet and go to join a bunch of about 100 or so minesweepers. We went into the China Sea to start sweeping the ocean for the pre-invasion of Japan. And we were there about 1 or 2 days, and we got recalled again. Everybody report back to their stations, minesweepers, everybody. So we went back to the Philippines, and we were in the Luzon. There about 2 days, and we got word a no weapon was dropped. That's why they told us to get out of there. They didn't know what was going to happen, how extensive the bomb was going to be, or where it was going to take off. And the war was over. Wow. Some people cried, some people smiled, some people prayed. Yeah, it's insane. You're right in the middle of the war and all this stuff's over. I mean, like that. But when the war, all it was over, and they start to sign a surrender, we got to communicate on the Nevada. The Nevada is going to be the lead ship going into Tokyo Bay and back of the 8, in front of the 8 or so battleships that were badly damaged. And we're going to sign a surrender on the Nevada. It's a true story. And wow. We polished it all out, took off the paint off the brass, how we stoned the decks, got the ship in ship shape, and all painted over the rust. We reported to Buckner Bay, waiting for our entourage. Got another communique. They changed their mind. They're going to use the USS Missouri. That's another ship I built.
It's amazing to think that you spent so much time in World War II in combat, but that you actually helped build these iconic ships.
But Harry Truman was the president. He was from Missouri. He wiped us out of there.
Well,
politics.
He wasn't perfect. Obviously, that was
they're still doing it today.
That's a black mark against that great man.
My father, he'd drive all the way to Missouri just to visit the grave of Harry Truman. If he was alive today, I would change his mind. He was a great man. He ended the war. Well, why could we fight with him? We couldn't anyhow. We were not even invited to the surrender. Would you believe that? The hero ship of Pearl Harbor, the most decorated ship in the Navy, battleship in the Navy. We fought in every theater of the war. One of the writers of the Navy Review said, "You sound like the Forrest Gump of the Navy."
Well, it was a great movie, and it's a great battleship.
But when the writer Ed Oakley was being interviewed, he listed all the places and the things we did.
Yeah,
he made that remark. I know whether to take it as an insult or a compliment.
No, in the chat column, you might be able to see I posted some photographs of the Nevada, and it's worth stressing that the Nevada was at Pearl Harbor and at Normandy.
Yeah,
that's extraordinary.
was the hero at both ends.
Yeah, incredible. Um, Carry on, sir. Sorry to interrupt. Tell us about the end of the war for you. What happened?
Well, we instead of letting us go to Japan, which we fought so hard to get there, they made us in charge of the magic carpet, which is take the troops home. So they sent all our senior petty officers home by air or whatever they could get to take them home. And we loaded the ships up with sailors, airmen, army, marines, anyone that needed a lift. We took them home. And I met one of my boyhood friends. I was checking these guys in, checking names over later. I said, my God, Charlie Zimmerman. That name sounds familiar. I went down and, hey, Charlie, how the hell are you? He says, who are you? I only left this guy 3 years ago. He said, who are you? I don't know what he was doing, but by the time we got back to the States, I had him back in reality. I spoke to him every day. I think that's what they should do with all these people, and they bring them home on leave instead of putting them on a swift jet and getting them home. Put them on an ocean liner and let it sail the Pacific. If you want to send their wives out, fine. But let these guys get over being jumpy, because you know you're on your right all the time. After the war, I went back to the Navy Yard, and they put me on board the USS Franklin, one of our aircraft carriers that was badly damaged at Okinawa. And they had some men jump over the side, and they were eventually court-martialed for desertion. And when they picked 25 men to take it back to the States, so they took it back through the Panama Canal and brought it to the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And I went and took my job back. And I worked there about a week and a half, and I got to get out of here. I mean, they were still finding body parts and stuff on the ship. And I mean, there's no job for me here now. So I got a job in a printing plant, and I became a lithographic pressman. And I did that until I was 60. And I made it pretty much. I was first pressman on a 4-color press. So it was a big web press, like a newspaper press, you know. And then I went to work one day, and one of my fellow pressmen dropped dead because we had no air conditioning in the place, and we had ovens on these presses. It was very, very hot to work there, very humid. I went home, told my wife, she says, you got to get out of there. So my neighbor across the street had just come back from Lenox, Massachusetts, but with the Tango on parade. And he said, I just bought a bed and breakfast up there. I said, hey, see if you can find something for me. So we found a 28-room house. I put in 5 bathrooms. I wallpapered the place, did electrical work, did a jack of all trades. And we opened up after a couple of weeks. I was working down on Long Island, and every weekend I'd come home. But we were working 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week there. And my neighbor who told me about the bed and breakfast, he said, Dick, why don't you stay home, stay on a job and work, and hire someone to do the last room, which is my living room. Hey, good idea. I made money by not having to do it. So we were very successful the first year. I operated for 14 years. I made enough money to retire on because in the interim, my union went out of business. And I lost my pension. I get a step into $200 a month from them now. Imagine that. and I got only $300 for Veterans Administration because I didn't get damaged during the war.
So Mr. Ramsey, where are you speaking to us from? Are you in Florida right now?
No, I'm in California.
Oh, what are you doing there? You with your family?
I'm living with my daughter. Well,
Oh,
I did move. I did move to Florida first, but I lost my wife after 5 years, and I was living by myself. And I met another gal about a couple of years later, and we hit it off right away. Eventually, we got married, and I moved in with her, and I sold my house. And that was the time when real estate was really up. I had paid cash for the house, and I sold it for double. I made my own retirement.
Mr. Ramsey, how do you feel about being called a member of the greatest generation? Do you believe that your generation was the greatest?
I believe so. You have to realize we were all children of the Great Depression. We were all underweight when we went into the boot camp. I gained 20 pounds. I went 120. I came out 160 in 10 weeks. I was getting 3 meals a day. Wow. Hot meals.
Do you think there's an awful lot of Americans who are spoilt and don't realize how lucky they have it these days?
Oh, God, yes. I mean, the kids, some of them, some of them 14, 15 years, never even had a job yet. It's I'm really unbelievable. And I speak at the schools and some colleges, and I spoke at a fundraiser for the Best Defense Foundation a couple of weeks before well, it must be a couple of months ago now, and I raised $10,000 for foreign speech. It was called the Bedford Club or something like that. It was a conglomeration of real estate people. They own their own building there, and it's a hotel. So they gave me a good bottle of scotch. Anyhow, that was good.
So,
never turn that down.
Mr. Ramsey, were you affected by the war? Did you have combat fatigue? Did you have jumpy nerves for a while?
Just for a very, very short time. I never went for any help or anything. My chief petty officer used to call me Redhead. I was a reddish blonde sailor, and everybody called me Redhead. So,
how about your hearing? How about your hearing? Because you were firing an awful lot of guns.
I got hearing aids both. I get hearing aids from the VA. I mean, that's the best thing they gave me. So this chief petty officer said he wasn't going to worry. That was my chief corps camp, my friend. So I mean, it was he I heard call me for about a month or two after the war to wake me up. But I figured, what is the point of letting something that's already happened and it didn't affect me too bad? But why should I carry it on my sleeve all the time? You can't keep replaying it. I keep speaking about it, yes, but I do this for educational purposes, not for accolades or anything like that.
Sir, Mr. Ramsey, you are the only person I know of who witnessed several of the pivotal key moments of World War II and therefore of modern world history. You were there off the coast of Normandy on June the 6th. You were there 1944. You were there for Operation Dragoon, August 1944. You saw the raising of the flag on Mount Suribachi.
Well, there's a story on that flag. This is amazing. I don't want to interrupt you. Everybody says they saw the flag raised. Very few. We didn't know there was a flag raised until they raised it. We saw a spot of red on top of Mount Soapachi. I mean, I saw it, sure, but we didn't even know they changed it to a second flag. The guy that took the picture, Joe Rosenthal,
Yeah.
they asked him after he took the second picture. Of course, he didn't know he took it. He couldn't develop it. What wasn't instant cameras like we have today. He said, "Did you pose it?" "Oh yeah, I had a gung ho picture." The first flag raising has a gung ho picture. I have a picture of that. I got a picture of the flag with both flags in it, one going up, one coming down. And I got a picture of the flag itself when they were raising it. So there were three flags, not raisings, but there was one changeover. There's a picture. There's a third picture.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen it?
We have Normandy, we have Operation Dragoon, the last amphibious invasion in the European theater. We have Iwo Jima, and then we have surviving kamikaze attacks off Okinawa. You are a remarkable survivor, sir. You are an incredible eyewitness to World War II. Amazing. You saw the big moments.
Well, that's what that officer said. It sounded like a forest film.
Wow, I'm in awe. I'm totally in awe. I just wanted to say, sir, thank you so much for joining us, and I really want to thank you for your service in the European theater and the Pacific theater. You made a huge difference to an awful lot of Americans fighting for their lives in the deadliest conflict in human history. I have a few comments here. Adrienne says, "Thank you so much for your service and for taking the time to speak with us." Andy says, "Thank you, Mr. Ramsey, for your service and presentation today." Heidi says, "Your talk today makes me feel better about the results of the Army-Navy game last week."
Yeah, up to 2 months ago, I was the lone survivor of the USS Nevada. And then I got a lot of publicity in the paper in Las Vegas and what have you. And all of a sudden, I got two guys popped up out of the woodwork. One I was able to talk to him on the phone, and his name is McDonald, and he lives in Florida, where I used to. I probably lived 30, 40 miles from the whole time I lived in Florida. I never moved down there, but he probably wasn't being involved with the veterans groups and what have you. I mean, I've been to Hawaii twice with the Daughters of the American Revolution, with Donnie Edwards with the Best Defense Foundation, and with the Greatest Generation with Timothy. I forget his last name. Tim on Queen Mary too. So
Mr. Ramsey, what message do you have for young Americans today? What would you like them to understand about this country and service based on your experiences?
Well, today I tell them to love one another first of all. If there's an argument, remember there was two sides to an argument. Let the other person have his side of it, and your side. Shake hands and go away friends. As my first wife used to say when she got married, you should put your hands in your pocket and make fists so you can't take them out to hit anybody. I had two great wives.
Is there a secret to leading a good life? What would you give it? What advice would you give to the rest of us for leading a good life?
Well, I pretty much like to do what I like to do. I like to visit my family. Every year when I come back from Normandy, I've been to Normandy 3 or 4 times already, and I've made arrangements with the Best Defense Foundation to fly me up to upstate New York, where my second family is. I have another daughter and 2 grand and 2 great grandkids up there, so I get to spend 3 months over the summer months with them, and then I fly back to California by myself.
We would love to see you at the World War II Memorial in DC. Do you have any plans to come our way?
Oh, I've been there already. I've made that with the best with the honor flights.
Right.
My
Did you
friend,
did you enjoy yourself? Did you have a good time at the World War II Memorial?
oh, it was wonderful. Of course, some certain things are missing from it that should have there. And I don't think they mentioned God there at all.
Are you a
I,
religious? Are you religious? Are you a man of faith?
I'm really faith, of course. I think everybody should have something to lean back on. Not that we have any real proof. I
Well,
mean,
I would say that you're living proof of faith. Definitely.
the men of the Nevada thought the ship had an aura of good luck about it. Because no matter what we went through until we got to Okinawa, we were never damaged. We didn't lose anybody with the exception of one man at Iwo Jima. And we shot one of their planes down to it. I think we did in like 10 or 15 rounds. I think they were trying to surrender, but we captured both pilots.
Well, sir, I wish you a very Merry Christmas indeed. I want to thank you for joining us today. It's been an absolutely extraordinary talk that you've given us. Wow, what amazing history. You belong to an incredible generation, and I want to say thank you for giving us everything. Everything that we enjoy today is down to you and your brave comrades who defeated
Well,
evil.
then I wish you happy holidays and Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much, sir, for being with us. It was a great honor. Wish you all the very best.
I catch a little British accent here. I spend a lot of time in England.
I bet you American Navy boys had a good time with some of those English ladies, yeah?
I think they had a good time too. That's not a one-way deal, you know.
Well, I thank you, sir. You're amazing, and I'm going to hand back to Holly in DC. I hope, sir, you'll join us again, and I wish you all the very best. And thank you to everybody for joining us all through this year. Thank you for being here today, and over to Holly in Washington DC. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And that was a great way to end the year. Thank you. We appreciate your service. We appreciate your time here today.
I'm the last one.
Well, we hope you'll come back. We hope you'll come back to Washington, D.C. We can give you a tour of the World War II Memorial. Alex does a great tour.
I had a tour, but it wasn't with somebody. I did it by myself. But
you won't want to miss it.
I'm on a walker. It's kind of difficult to walk. I need a wheelchair, or if it's any great length.
Well, Alex's tour, he recreates the landing at Omaha Beach, so it's a little intense. So everyone should experience it once.